Ladies and gentlemen of antiquity, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to Anno 117 Pax Romana. And today, my friends, we're going to be going through some beginner's tips that I've learned in the hours and hours and hours and hours I've played since the first video that I did post. And I have to say, when I go back and watch that first video and many of the playthroughs afterwards, my cities were on fire, we had massive public unrest, Nurgle had spread his touch, his plague, to my islands on many occasions. And we've learned from our mistakes. So what I want to do today is go through a whole bunch of tips and things that I've learned that will hopefully be helpful for you guys as you begin your adventures in Anno 117. So thank you to Ubisoft for sponsoring today's video. The game itself is going to be coming out on November 13th on Steam, Epic, Ubisoft Connect, Xbox, and PlayStation. So without further ado, let us jump in and see if we can all learn together. All right, guys, and so begins our great journey into Latium here, and let's go ahead and take a look and break it all down. So first things first, for any of you guys who are newer to the game, we're going to go ahead and break down all the UI and all the different tools you have here, and we will be going into greater detail about some of these various tools later on in the video. So up at the top left, you do have your denarii, your income, your money. So here, this is what you're going to be spending to build buildings. For example, out of the gates, you're going to need some resources to build your woodcutter, your sawmill, and your more advanced buildings like your theaters and your grammaticus and your sanctuaries. Your big AoE kind of buff buildings that really progress you tech-wise usually are going to cost quite a bit of money. Military units cost money, Navy costs money. You guys get the idea. It's very, very important. Now, out of the gates, when you do start, of course, you are going to be at a negative income before you start establishing your empire and getting all those goodies going. But don't worry about that. 15,000 is a lot, and you're going to be able to stabilize this relatively quickly. So this is your money, this is your balance and your income. So you're going to see what your expenses are. In the beginning, it's just your land taxes. And as you do go to various islands and settle new islands, the emperor is going to be imposing a land tax on you. There's no, we can't escape taxes in real life, and you can't escape it in video games. It's coming for you. So for each island you do settle, you're going to be paying a separate land tax. This is your total population, so this is a way to track your population on the island, and out of the gates, you will just be starting with a Libertus workforce, but eventually you'll get plebeians, you're going to be getting the Equitus, you're going to be getting the more advanced Tier 4 the civilians as well, and it's all going to be tracked right here. Looks like our island name is Mimosa, but you are able to change this, but it looks like, Tyrannius the Elder here would be down for a little bit of Mimosa action. Here's our island income and our island population. So the island income, of course, you can bounce around to different islands. So if you have another island off here on the map, for example, you're going to be able to see your income for that respective island once you do head over there. Now, as we head over to the west side, we can see our quest tracker. The quest tracker is more of a tutorial tool, but it also will track your various quests that you do have. The NPCs will often come, or the emperor will approach you and be like, hey, homie, I need 100 stacks of lumber. You have 100 days to do this, and you can track your quests there. Pretty simple. Notifications are really, really important, especially in the late game. You want to pay close attention to this because this is where you're going to be getting notified about fires in your cities and plagues. And when you have like 4 or 5 or 6 islands, it's a good habit to get into, to essentially go on over here, look at your notifications, and make sure you're not missing a plague or a fire, because they can really just, especially in the late game, once you have these big cities, if you're not paying attention, and let's say you play like I do, and you like to play your city like a Chaos Dwarf, where it's just fires of industry, your whole city, block or city center can burn down, and it can be a massive setback and incredibly hard to come back from. So very important stuff there. Next up, you have the research. Research is going to be unlocked once you build your first Grammaticus building, which we will be showing you later on. You have religion, which opens up pretty quickly, but again, that happens when you build your first sanctuary, and you can devote yourself to a patron god. Prestige is an effect that goes down from your governor's villa, and this is going to be essentially allowing you to have more specialists on your island. So again, we'll get into that a little bit later on. Trade routes are very important, and you will be seeing those later on in the tutorial, but this allows you to open up a UI which shows you the entire region of Latium that you are playing in, and you can establish trade routes with other players, with the neutral parties, whatever you're into. So that is the trade routes, and then last but not least, we do have diplomacy. So out of the gates, we only have the Emperor here. So the Emperor is the only individual that we can open diplomacy with. You can click this, and now's a good time to take a look at the Emperor's diplomacy. So the Emperor is going to come to you and give you various tasks. He's going to be like, hey, homie, give me these resources, or sometimes he'll even tell you to do missions, like go and take down this boat, or go and deal with these raiders. And, sometimes he's going to be a little bit difficult, but if you work with him, it's going to give you some huge benefits. Now, out of the gates, you do start with 0 reputation, which gives you the basic reroll of items at traders. But as you get better, it becomes cheaper to settle islands. Now, this is huge, because settling islands out of the gates is like 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 denarii. So increasing your reputation with the Emperor and doing those early quests that he gives you is very important. So for example, if you attack another governor, the Emperor will often intervene and be like, hey, stop this war. You guys got to stop, fighting over here. And if you want to continue beating up that governor, you have to deny the emperor, and then he's going to start, player hating on you, which is going to give you negative penalties. It's going to cost more to settle islands, et cetera, et cetera. So as you get better here, you're going to get different perks, 15% better prices for goods with his representatives, which is very, very good as well. And eventually you get some pretty sweet perks. If you go all the way to the top, you can force other governors to be your specialists, even if you're not allied. Reduce reputation costs for war declarations, so you can get a little bit more aggroed. Defensive alliance with the emperor. So once you become a consul of Rome, you are really, really a powerhouse. Anyways, that is a quick look at that. So as we go back to the basic UI, we go to the bottom here. This is very important. These are your island fertilities. And as you plan and build on your island, you're going to want to really take note of these. So this island, for example, has mackerel, grape, flax, iron, and gold ore deposits. Now, these resources, once you become more familiar with the game, are used at different points throughout the game. Mackerel, for example, are an integral part of Tier 2 because they give you access to garum and bread, so you can satisfy all the food needs of your plebeians. So this island setup, for example, has a very strong Tier 2. Of course, it is lacking olive oil as well as resin, which are important, but you can usually find those and trade for those in other islands. So these are the different resources your islands are going to have. So as you go about, you can go to different islands, and once we explore with our boat, you are going to be able to, see what those islands have, and that will influence what you're going to be settling here. So we have mackerel, grape, flax, iron, et cetera, et cetera. You can see how many river slots the island has, and you can see how many mountain slots. Mountain slots are where you get iron, it's where you get granite, and some of the more advanced building materials. And other tools down here, you have regular speed, fast forward, you can check the time of the day or night, and here you can go to Latium or Albion. So if you zoom out, eventually, when the emperor gives you the opportunity to settle different regions, you can then go and explore them on the world map. And it gets really crazy. So at a point in the campaign, or in the gameplay, this is sandbox, he's like, hey, you can go ahead and settle Albion now. So then you need to go to that other region, and you can start your conquest of that if you're so interested. Now, we go here. This is construction. These are your basic buildings. It's going to open up as you get more classes of citizens. This is your resources down here with your lumber. So you're going to be able to build your lumber camps and your lumber mills. And these little tooltips are some of the most damn useful things in the entire game. I'm going to go over these when the time comes up. But just for a simplistic explanation, you can demolish buildings here. You can relocate buildings here and drag and drop them around. And a really big cheat code with this one we'll talk about later, which is relocating your emergency services. You can upgrade your buildings en masse here. When I first started playing, I was individually upgrading them. But let's say you have like 10 houses that you want to upgrade. You're going to be able to just drag and drop here. This one is the copy and paste template. We'll show you this one later as an example. But this allows you essentially to copy and paste a building setup or a grid you've already built. Huge, and then just paste it somewhere else. It saves you so much time. And then here you have your aesthetics. So you're able to build like little aesthetic things on your empire. Not something I dabble with too much, but it's helpful. This one pulls up all your ships. So if you have a big navy, you can toggle that, see what they're up to. And this tooltip here will grab all your troops. So that's the basic UI breakdown. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into some tips that I've learned through my gameplay. Get into the game and really start your adventure. The first thing that you're going to want to do is grab your ship, get this bad boy locked up, and just go ahead and hit the shift button, hold it down, and shift him around the entire map. Now, be careful about clicking on the southern side of the map. There are raiders down there. They pretty much always seem to spawn in the south. So if you send your flagship down there, it can be overwhelmed by raiders and their defenses if you're not careful. But what you do, hold shift, click here, and they're just going to go scout around the map and then loop it back here. This is going to discover other NPCs, the Emperor's representatives, neutral traders, and also will let you see other islands so you can start developing a game plan of where you want to settle and where you want to expand. So now that the flagship is out and about, and of course you can see our glorious tutorial man, I'll be the tutorial guy today. The first thing you want to do is establish your lumber. So what you're going to be doing here is just going hard in the paint and looking for lumber efficiency. So we're going to be dropping you here, and here's 100% as well. And then you're going to want to get roads to those. Now, the thing about lumber camps is normally you do, of course, need, and you want to try and build your roads in such a way that they don't mitigate the effectiveness of the lumber mill. You can see the effectiveness going down. So if I build the road straight through the woods here, it's going to basically take away a lot of efficiency of the lumber mill. So we're going to go out this way, down to the south, and then loop it down to our trading post. Now, the trading post counts as a warehouse, and you can check and see if they can reach it by clicking on these and seeing the green path. Now, what's really cool about the lumber mill setup is you can use the sawmills, and they extend the radius. So basically, if you have a lumber camp all the way back here, you're going to be able to then use the sawmill as an intermediary between it as well as the trading post. So it's kind of a little cheat code, so you don't have to build extra, business in the beginning. But regardless, we're going to go ahead and build a sawmill here, and we're going to build one right over here as well. With these things, you want to look at the supply chains, and this is something else we can talk about right now. When you look at any resource, you can see its processing time. So as we look at the UI here, processing time is how long it takes. You can see the maintenance cost over there as well as the workforce cost, which is going to be -4, and the construction, of course. So basically a woodcutter is going to take 30 seconds. A sawmill is going to take 30 seconds. You can usually, on a very simple rule of thumb, have that on a 1-to-1 ratio. But there are some variables you need to consider, like warehouse clutter, the efficiency of this camp. So for example, if we look here, you can see this actually takes 31 seconds to build its wood because some of the trees were demolished by the road. So it's always hard to get lumber mills to be perfect, but in general, that can be a 1-to-1 ratio. And once you set up your supply chains, you can go to your main tab here and you can start to see the current potential, the demand you have, a little bit more relevant once we get into trade goods. But basically, my big tip for you guys is do not be shy about lumber mills. I am someone who I learned just the hard way that staying on tier 1 longer, getting a massive lumber economy is going to just hugely jump you ahead. If you're just, build maybe 2 woodcutters out of the gates, you're not going to be going too hard on the lumber, then what's going to end up happening is you're just going to progress much slower despite maybe being able to tech quicker. So set up your lumber mills. Don't be shy. Honestly, once you're able to get your first batch of workforce, I recommend like 6 lumber mills. Just go really, really hard in the paint and feast. So next, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about building, and there's a couple useful tools for this. So, for example, you can pause the game, of course. It's a solo team builder. Multiplayer, you won't be able to. But here, you can normally drop houses. So in this situation, I could drop a house here, and I could relocate it later if I don't like it. But relocating does cost money. So the most efficient thing to do, in my experience, is to click this UI button right here and go to planning mode. Now, planning mode is probably the most useful tool in the game. Essentially, when you're just playing at regular speed, it's going to take a while to gather your lumber and get your resources. And if you're playing with friends in multiplayer, I don't think you're going to be able to fast forward. From what I understand, it wasn't a thing in the previous games. I don't know if it is here. But this is going to allow you to start setting up your city. Now, normally, the way I like to play is to rush fish markets and build my economy and a lot of my housing infrastructure on the coastline here. So what we're going to do is probably build our first part of the grid right here and expand this way. So at least this housing network here is going to be able to get the fish markets and a lot of lumber up here. So we're going to be able to hit charcoal and more wood infrastructure over there. So how I like to build is I like to go for, initially when I first started, I was just building huge lines here, but basically I like to build grids. So I'm going to build this real quick and then we'll show you guys what it looks like afterwards. Basic buildings here, you can see we've done a 3x2 system, which is pretty good because you can basically just make roads. And this is a very useful tip as well. If you're trying to build a road network around a set of buildings, you basically just mouse over it and then click on the building network and it's going to do it. But you'll notice I left a little bit too much space. Typically, you just want to leave space for one road to go through to really maximize the efficiency. So this is an illustration of relocating. So you can click here, you can drag this, and then you're going to be able to move that around. So I'm able to move it closer in the planning mode, and then, you're able to progress from there. So what I like to do with the cities, and this isn't probably the most advanced thing in the world, but it's something I found to be pretty effective, is I like to build a grid like this, put my tavern as well as my market in the middle, and then put another grid on this side, another on this side, and use the corners to put my area of effect building. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this, and I'll show you in just a moment. All right, guys, so it's time to set up the houses here. So I'm happy with where they are, and I'm going to build the roads around them by simply clicking. Now, you can do this with any building. You can click here, and it'll put a road around this. If you have a bunch of farms that you want to consolidate and make look nice and pretty, you can do that as well. Now, always remember to connect roads, or else you're going to be suffering. And now we can illustrate the mass upgrade feature. So if you have any set of buildings that you can upgrade, basically you just click, you hold, you drag, and boom, it's going to build them all at once. So it'll build buildings of the same type, whichever one you click on first. Incredibly useful. So now that we progress with our residences, we need to meet their needs. So taking a look at the needs mechanic in this game, you can mouse over the plebeian house or the libertas houses, and you'll notice that there's no population yet, and there's no workforce coming out of it. That's because we have to meet their food needs, and you can see they need sardines met, they need sardines, and they need porridge. We also need to meet the market and the tavern, as well as eventually get them clothing. Now, when you meet the various needs, look at this. So we mouse over the fish, and you can see once we meet their fish needs, it's going to increase the population of this house by 1, and it will also give us 1 income. And once we get the porridge here, it's going to give us 2 plus 2 population. So if at the bare bones we give them all the fish needs they need, as well as their porridge, they're going to be 3 population per house. Now, once we get the markets themselves are going to give you income in the houses. It will also give you population, and then the tavern is going to give you happiness and population. So if we add all these together, for example, that's going to be 3 from food needs, and then we're going to get another 2 population from the tavern as well as the markets. Clothing needs are going to give you income, and then here we get happiness and income from the Peleus needs. Now, housing needs vary based on the tier of citizen. Once you get to higher tier citizens, they're going to have different needs, although they do retain the basic needs from before. So if you have an advanced household, but you lose your porridge and sardines, you're going to be losing the needs of those households. So make sure you meet these needs. And we'll show you one of the more efficient ways to do that as we get going here. So we're going to continue setting up, and I will show you what's cooking in just a moment. We progress here, we do set up our fishing hut. So the fishing hut is going to be gathering sardines. They're going to take it to the trading post, which is essentially your warehouse. You will be building more warehouses later. But what these bad boys are going to do is they're going to start distributing the sardines to the people. And you're going to notice that the food needs are going to start getting augmented here once the sardines do get dropped off. So they're going to start getting consumed once the fish do get dropped off here. But in order to meet all the goodies, we do need to get a farming network. Now, farms, I like to go ahead and build farms out on kind of their own area and partition part of my island to have a very kind of a very uniform farming area that we can kind of focus on for area effects and specialists that we get later and whatnot. So here what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up a farm, and when you set up a farm, it's just going to get plopped down here on the ground. But then you need to click on the oat field here, and you drag just like this. Now, I like to kind of figure out a way to keep it uniform. Granted, as I get later in my playthroughs, it usually gets really sloppy. So you can do like partial drops like this, just kind of going all the way to the edge of the map. So that is going to be an oat farm there. But you'll notice, and this is why I put it out here also, is that the range of the oat farm does not reach a warehouse. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to set up a warehouse out here, which we're going to set up in the corner, which means it probably will reach all the farms that we're going to set up in this area. And then the oat farmers are going to bring this back over. As we look back at the house here, you can see the sardines are now being fed to the people. And once that threshold reaches, it's going to increase the population by 1. So each of these houses is going to be getting going. Something else I want to point out, we do have our flagship, which is continuing to scout. We can look at other islands here, and we can see their various fertilities and what they have to offer. So you usually want to look at what your island lacks. For example, lavender is really useful at tier 2 for soap. Looking for olive oil and resin are usually going to be our biggest priorities for advancing. So olive oil, resin, and lavender are what you want to be looking for to advance to tier 2. We'll keep our ship going around, and we're going to head back to our old island now. And you can see we have a negative workforce. Now, when your workforce goes negative, it pulls a percentage of each of the areas to kind of split the workforce up, which slows things down a little bit. But regardless, the sardines are going to get dropped off, and soon we are going to get our porridge going. So we'll be back with that in just a moment. So we had a event happen just now that allowed us to buy some lumber for one of our workers, essentially a quest. So what you can do is if you want to make your workforce very efficient, we don't need lumber right now. So we can go to our woodcutters and we can pause the sawmill and pause the sawmill as well. So you can see that's going to free up some of our liberatus workforce and help us progress a little bit quicker here. So the food needs are slowly being met. Our sardines are being fished out. We do, of course, see the porridge stand going hard, and I always like to get a second sardine very, very early on, just to really make sure those food needs are going to be met. Now, we do meet a rival. The rival here, you have the option to extend a respectful greeting, or you can make fun of them. If you're playing an aggressive playthrough, it's not a bad idea to be hostile out of the gates. But personally, old man Tyrannius here is going to be friendly, so that will increase our reputation. So now we want to expand. We have a lot of wood. We need more workforce here, and these houses are going to be getting built up slowly as the sardines do get dropped off. So what we want to do is we want to click the copy tool, do this. That's going to copy our full district, and then you click planning mode, and we're going to just kind of go right up here. So we want to make sure it lines up here. I always like to kind of have it nice and symmetrical there. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And we're going to leave some space in the middle. We might need to relocate it. I think that should be enough space right there for the markets to fit, but sometimes you could just go a little bit wider out there. So that's going to be nice, just like this. There we go. All right, that is chef's kiss. So we're going to be dropping that, and then we're going to put our markets and our various taverns and our AoE mechanics in between those, and we'll be back with that in just a second. All right, so now that the needs of the people have been met, you can see the sardines are coming in here, the needs are being met, it's increasing the population of our households. We now have the option to get the markets going. So there's going to be different building tiers you're going to see popping up right here. The Liberty, tier buildings are going to be right here. So with these bad boys, you'll notice we didn't quite get it exactly as we wanted. So we need a little bit more space here. And since this was just part of the planning, we can essentially demolish these, demolish the roads, and get a partial refund. Now, if you play on the easier difficulties, you are going to be able to, get away with demolishing things for free. So you want to put these in the middle, and I always like to leave a little bit of space in between the middle here. So we're going to drop this, and we're going to drop this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build some roads around these buildings and even this out. I'm just OCD. I have to have this even here. Okay, so that's going to be open. We'll finish this and finish this. And now these houses are going to start having the needs met for the public service. So those bad boys are going to be good. And this is an opportunity for us to do this. So we're going to get the copy. We're going to do that just like so. And now we're going to just go drop it like it's hot right here. And kaboom. So that's going to drop it. But if you have planning mode on, it isn't automatically going to build the buildings. And from here, we could just upgrade and kaboom. So that is going to massively increase our workforce, and they're going to start getting the benefits. But as you scale your people, you need to keep their needs in check. So what we can do here is go take a look here and look and see. So right now, the sardines, we have 2 being produced, and the demand is 1. For porridge, it's 1-to-1. So we're going to need porridge a little bit quicker here. And for the porridge chain, as we talked about earlier on, it is a 1-to-1 ratio, I believe, as well. So oat farm produces 1 per minute, and the porridge stand, which we built here off recording, is going to be 1 minute as well. So we will continue with that. Need to make sure to surround with houses here, do a little bit of cleanup, and then we need to progress to the next needs of our workers, which is going to be getting a supply chain of hemp farms as well as the palaises. So now in the top here, we did build a hemp farm, which a hemp farm is going to be allowing us to produce our spinners. The spinner here is going to be a processing time of 1 minute, and the hemp farm farms every 1 minute. So 1-to-1 ratio is going to work there relatively well. You have to take into account transportation time, but generally it's all right. So sheep's a little different. Sheep are very quick. Processing time is 30 seconds, and the felter takes a minute. So you could be a 2-to-1 ratio there, give or take. All right, so our houses are having their needs met. They have all their food needs met. They have all their sardines and porridge coming in. They have their market and tavern. And we have our nice little grid district right here. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is going to be area of effect buildings. So what I would like to do in this situation is build my next batch of houses down this way. So I want to leave these corners like here, 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 and here available. And what you do is you just drop the felter right here. So we're going to do it like this. And you'll notice every single house is going to be getting hit. So there's 2 things about these production units. You can see the need attributes that the Palaeus manufacturing building will give. So it's going to make the civilians happy and give you income, but the building itself also has an area of effect. The area of effect here is going to be giving every building hit, and this includes negative area effects. Some buildings like cause fire hazards, but every building in this area here is going to be getting that nice bonus. So we're going to go ahead and build this and build this. So now once these get operational, once they have their goods delivered to them, they are going to start giving us an income boost, which is going to be a massive, massive spike on economy. And from here, we're going to go ahead and set up a warehouse in the corner. And we're going to do a warehouse right over here. And I'll explain why, because we're going to be augmenting our wood economy over here. And we want a warehouse where they can really effectively drop off. So kaboom, there you go. And we'll be back once these operations are online. So like I said, don't be shy about your wood. You're going to want to set up a bunch of lumber. And here, you can always click on the lumber mill or wood cutter, and it's going to show you all of your wood cutters around. So you can see we have 5 wood cutters, a quick way to do this, and then sawmill, and you can see how many sawmills we have. Now, if you click on the second part of a chain, so we click on the sawmill, it will show you all the prerequisites as well. So a very easy way to kind of track essentially how your chain setup is. So if we click on the robes here, it's going to go up here, and we can see a hemp farm and be like, oh, 1-to-1. Of course, you can also go to your governance tab in your production, and you're going to be able to see that, okay, so we have a supply of 1, and we are producing 1 as well with the 1-to-1 supply versus demand chart over there. So very, very helpful stuff. All right, guys, so we're going to gather some wood. That's what she said. And we will see you guys in just a moment. Quick look here as we do progress. You can see that the spinner as well as the felter are now working. So our income is getting a little bit better. You can see the income from the residences, and then there's an income from the area effect and specialists as well. Our wood's coming together, and what we're going to do here is we're going to build another row of houses. So we can copy and paste if we like, which is very nice. So you can essentially grab these, copy and paste, and set it up over here. We may need to move some buildings, but no problem. You can click this. I could even deploy this on the other side. Since we can't really expand that way anyways, we keep the area of effect going. Life is good. So we're going to set up our next district, and then we will advance to tier 2. So now we've set up our next district here. You can see a lot more houses coming in, and we have set up our grid. And one thing you always want to do when you're looking at the influence of the markets is you can click on them before you actually build the building. So you click here, and you're going to be able to see that all of them are affected. So once that's done, you click the upgrade tool, you drag, call it a frickin' day, man. Glorious. You're going to notice that our limited workforce population is going to massively increase now as the needs of the new houses are met. But with more population comes more needs. We're most likely going to need some more oats. So we're going to build another porridge stand over here. We're going to drop it like it's hot. And then in order to accommodate that new porridge stand, we're going to set up a new oat farm here. Drop it just like so, and we can make it look nice and good. We're going to build it out. And boom. So that should address our needs. And it's never a bad idea if you have excess workforce to just get more sardines. You know, you could always sell them later on if you want to, but you're going to be expanding pretty quickly at a point. So having the extra surplus isn't bad. But our AoE buildings, I moved them during construction. So we want to get it in such a way where they'll hit as much as possible. Now, I could just build multiple of these, you know, but I want to maximize the efficiency. And that way, boom, you can see these houses are now having their needs met food-wise, market, as well as the various clothing. You'll see that the tunics and the palaces are not fully met, but they will be in a second. We may need to build more. We can go and check here our new needs and see that 1-to-1, okay, so we don't need to build more of those as of now and more of those. It should be fine. It's only a matter of time. So we'll be back and we will be upgrading in just a second. So something to look at here before we advance, we did hit a new tier of city. So as you reach another tier of city and the population increases, we're now a minor city, it increases your risk of fire, health, and other issues and happiness. So when the city's huge, it's much harder to keep things together. Just something to know. Keep tabs on that. So now that the basic needs of the citizenry has mostly been met, you can see all the thresholds here. 200% is perfect supply, so that means you're meeting all the needs. You don't have to meet all the needs, you just need to get 100%. So if I was missing porridge, I could still advance them to the next tier, for example. You just have to meet 1/2, but always you want to kind of strive to get that going where you want to go. So to advance to the next tier, you click on a house and you click the arrow. Now, you can also mass upgrade. So you can do this and see these houses are available for promotion. So we are going to try this. Upgrade a few of these, and in doing so, it's going to unlock the next tier, which is the plebeian. This is going to give us bread, garum, as well as the sanctuary, grammaticus for research, as well as the villa, and it gives you the next tier of resource here, which is going to be tiles. For tiles, you need to go to the river slots, set up clay pits, and then tillers, and all sorts of stuff like that. So we are on tier 2. Now, this is something that I did not know for the longest time. When I was first learning this game, I had never played an Anno game before. You can downgrade buildings as well. So let's say you accidentally get too many plebeians and your Libertas workforce starts to struggle. You hold down the Alt button on your keyboard, you click this, and it will downgrade the house. Now, you're not going to be getting a recoup of the upgrade cost. You will lose that. But it's very important to do this because there's going to be times in the game where, you have a disaster, let's say a fire, and it ravages one of your districts where your Libertas workforce is primarily focused. Well, then you might need to downgrade some of your plebeians to cover the Libertas workforce and then become, the replacement for those guys. So highly recommend doing that. All right, so now we are tier 2 and we can get the things going here. And I'm going to talk about a couple things. Some of my favorite ways to play this game. We'll get into it in just a moment. Now, I want to illustrate negative effects for you guys. So as you get into more advanced tech, for example, here we've set up our chain for the clay pits. Now, clay pits are your resource for building tier 2 buildings. You need the clay, which takes 30 seconds, and then you need to have the tillers. The tillers themselves are 1 minute, but you also need charcoal. Charcoal, you go to the trees and you set up a charcoal burner. But look at this. If you build it too close to your city, it's going to be a massive, massive penalty. It will give -3 health and -3 fire risk, which if you add that to all of these is horrible. So ideally for these type of buildings, like your tiller, what I like to do is set them up a little bit off the beaten path, like away from the city, so they affect as little as possible. You can kind of keep your tillers together, for a supply chain, set up a warehouse next to them, set up the charcoal burner nearby, and just avoid that where you can. So yeah, that's something to be very, very careful about. And for example, a bread maker, if we look at the bread maker, this is one where you have to weigh the pros and cons because bread makers give you a +2 area of effect income. This isn't the need of bread. Now, bread need is important. It gives you 2 population and 1 income as well. But for this, insanely big because it gives you +2 income to each building. So personally, I take the risk. I put the bread maker in the heart of the city because each of those buildings is going to get +2 income. And it's honestly just too good to pass up on, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. Could be a little bit new Bodhi on that, but I play like a disciple of Hashut. We just put out the fires as they come. So yeah, take that into account when you're setting up your buildings. So now we're running into workforce issues, so we need to expand our city. And why not just take our lovely little template, which might not be the most optimal thing in the world, but we made it. It's ours. You can click, find a nice big open area where you want to kind of start setting up your next chain. Of course, we could settle down here if we were interested and get some nice AoE effects, but we are going to go maybe just set it up here. So the trees, we need charcoal burners. This can be our little farming colony right here. So we're going to set up our farmer colony. Maybe plan the governor's villa out here. So you always want to leave these like spaces like right where my mouse is right here to set up like big area of effect buildings. But we can set it up here and then that's going to allow us to do some big, nice surrounding infrastructure and really, really expand. So we'll go right there for now. It's all right. So we've set up here, we're going to do a little bit of tidying up because it's currently a little bit ugly. We're going to move down here, and that is a big expansion project. We need to make sure to connect the roads and not mess up our mills too much. Here, the needs are going to be met, but we do need to complete the roads around the houses there, and now we are golden. So that is going to start increasing, but as we do that, we need to take into account the sardines. Currently, the sardine situation is fine. The robes look to be okay. We're going to see if the needs are still met, and we will follow this as the population does increase. But that's going to give us more Libertas workforce, which means now we're going to be able to upgrade some of our plebeian workforce. And that is going to allow us to work the charcoal burners here. So we're going to set up a warehouse out this way, and we can move you just like so and get a nice little charcoal situation going. All right, so we built our charcoal burners up here. They're going to be away from the city. For the most part, not affecting too much. We got a warehouse for them to drop off. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow my tillers to come online once they get their charcoal. Currently, we have a nice little surplus of clay, which will give us our tier 2 resource. Something else I wanted to show you guys as well is settling new islands. So to settle a new island, you can see if it's a big island, it's, the bigger, the more expensive. It's going to be 33,000. So if you have more than negative 10,000, and this is the next kind of lesson to talk about here. If you have playing with debt is fine, but if you go below negative 10,000, you're at risk of losing the game if you stay there for over 10 minutes. But don't be afraid to go negative 5,000, negative 7,000 if it means getting a big tech progression or a big power spike. Honestly, if this island was like, 10,000, I would just take it, maybe even consider grabbing it once I get a better wood economy like early on, because the other players in AI are going to be settling these islands very, very quickly. So, take that into account. So now that we've gotten our population bigger, we have unlocked some very important buildings. We have unlocked the sanctuary, which you can see has a big area of effect. This is a huge one. It gives you happiness and it gives you belief. Belief are points that progress you towards your deity of your choosing, and the Grammaticus is your tech building. This building right here, a little bit of a smaller area of effect, but you can put it in such a way that it'll hit this whole district, which is very nice. This will increase the speed at which you research. We'll show you what that looks like once we get there. But we have some downtime waiting for our additional tech. We're going to talk about diplomacy a little bit. So as you do discover other rulers, you have the option of taking a loan from them, which they actually will give you very readily, but you have to pay it back with interest, or you can be more aggressive about it. Enter war, a defensive pact, trade treaty, non-aggression, and these are things that are required by tech. So you can request alliance, appoint as a specialist, or subjugate them into a specialist. But again, you need to be very far along to get those done. So those are your various options. So you cannot trade with the other AI governors at first. However, we have discovered down here, this is a free trader. So they're not directly associated with the emperor, but you see they do have amphorae. Now, this is something that is a plebeian tech, but we unfortunately don't even have the resources for it on the island. You need resin. So importing from here would be very good. Now, this is the first opportunity to look at trade routes. So to make a trade route, you click New Trade Route, you click on your island, the trade destination, and back to your island, you add a ship. And once you do that, you could bring something from your island to sell. You can mouse over and see what she wants. She wants to buy clay, oats, uncut marble, or oysters. So you can play that if you want. But in this case, it's just going to be a shopping journey. I'm going to buy all the goodies that she has and then click to unload them here and establish the route. So now that ship is just going to automatically do that. Over here, for example, this is the Emperor's representative, Diana Augustus. If you go here, she sells essential construction materials. So early game, once you get your economy stabilized, it's not a bad idea to go up here and buy these. But you can also see this icon. This trader will buy anything that you have to offer. And you can also buy specialists that you can put in your villa for some nice perks. But in that case, you can send any goodies over to Diana, and you can basically live pretty good. You can sell. So if you want to focus on mass producing weaponry, so you would, for example, go to construction, go to military buildings, and look at the chain here. You can build a bunch of iron mines, build ingots, and then build weapons. You can then go to your storage and see that weapons sell for 30 a pop, which is really good. That's how my favorite build is, to dedicate myself to the god Ares and do that. But highly, highly recommend doing the weapons crafting and selling if you can. A little bit later on, we're starting to get our first tiles. We have our tiller operation here. So they are being brought the clay tiles, and we have the adequate workforce of that. And we'll be back with our first tech in a moment. So now what we're going to be doing is setting up a sanctuary and taking a look at the religion system. So sanctuaries have a massive radius. For example, if I'm able to maybe get it in here, we can build some roads around this and connect these two neighborhoods. That's going to give us a more effective sanctuary, which is going to be hitting two cities. Now, sanctuaries, as well as Grammaticuses, are a needs category for the tier 2 plebeian, and of course will be for your later troops or tech. So we put up a sanctuary here. It's going to increase happiness and belief. Now, this is where we choose a deity. So we go to religion, and let's take a look at the different options. So The most beginner-friendly, hands down, is probably Ceres. She increases the production of bread, porridge, wine, beer, as well as olive oil. But more importantly, as your belief increases, and you can see it's going to start increasing here. Yeah, it should. Cool. Now that the sanctuary is up. Yep, you can see it going up right here. Once we hit these tiers, it's going to give you +1 to the confer ratio. That will increase the population of each of your houses by 1. So it's really strong. Basically, you just worship Ceres and you get a huge population, a big workforce, more resources, you generate more, you get it. Very simple. Also, eventually, you're going to be unlocking shrines. And as global worship of Ceres increases, you eventually get the shrines. You can increase your farm's efficiency by 50%, and you can increase the storage limit on all of your islands. So there's different techs, like each of them. You get gladiators with Ares, your troops get stronger, with Poseidon your ships are better. Really depends on what you're into. Now, you can switch patrons at any time, but in doing so we're going to set patron here. The tech is going to start going. Let's say you're really far along. And this is one of the first things I did. I got Ceres, I went into the research tree, okay? And then I switched to Minerva, which is a tech god that increases your wisdom. But I didn't realize that Ceres was the reason I had a population. So then it deletes all your progress with this god and starts fresh with a different one. So be very careful switching between deities because you will lose the perks out of the gates. Now with the other ones, it's not so bad. Poseidon, you just lose, the ship upkeep, and with Ares, your troops might be a little bit weaker, whatever, if you switch. Et cetera, et cetera. But with Ceres, be very, very careful. You can switch between deities, but watch out. Next up, we're going to be placing a Grammaticus, and we're going to drop it at the top of the neighborhood right here. And what this does is it creates an area of effect where each house within the aura is going to be giving us +3 knowledge. Knowledge will go and unlock the research tab here. So the research tab is very vast. It's huge in this game. Now, these little spheres are kind of things you need to meet to unlock different brackets. So for example, this one, if you reach a city status of growing city and generate 500 knowledge, you unlock municipal research, which gives you the trireme here. If you do the Latin research by having a trade route in Latium and generating 500 knowledge, it gives you this route, right? So I could talk about my favorite techs all day. Sewing circles is really good. Fish markets is cracked. Market range is very good. You can rush armor making if you want to be like going into the legionnaires and getting all that business going. Tons of different tech options, but that is your tech tree. And you can also select multiple. So I can click here, 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 and it will set a chain for you. So if you don't want to think about it, you're someone who forgets about it, you can totally do that and you're going to be cooking. So those are the basics of that. And now, guys, let's go ahead and get our villa set up. We have the option to set up the governor's villa. Now, what's important about the villa is that if your island is attacked, your trading post acts as your capital. So if they defeat your trading post, they can take over your island. But once you build a governor's villa, that then becomes your capital building, which they need to defend. Do not build your governor's villa on the water. As much of a beautiful view as that is, it's going to get raided by like 5 or 6 boats and you're going to lose your island super easily. Put it inland. So in this situation, we look at where it can get maximum effectiveness. So we're going to go ahead and delete this wood right here. We're going to put the governor's villa right over here. And you can also leave a little bit of space with it if you want to build walls around it, like just like this, and build roads. But for now, we're going to drop it like so. So the governor's villa, what it does is you can put specialists in here. So you get specialists from events that happen randomly, or you can buy specialists from the neutral vendors. This one, for example, sandal makers in range give you health, which is really good. This one makes it so extractors in range, which is a later production building, require less workforce. This guy makes it so porridge stands nearby give a belief area effect. So your porridge stands become a religious epicenter. So you can drop them inside of your governor's villa, and you earn more slots as you get more prestige on your island. Prestige is earned through a multitude of ways. Well, that's something for like a more advanced tutorial. Today's going to be a little bit more beginner focused, but that is your villa. But you can also build a second building here. You can build your officium. The officium is an extension of your villa, which you can drop, and it basically gives you a place to put more specialists to hit other parts of your island that your villa is not going to be within the influence to reach. So those are essentially the basics. And you'll notice we're in debt right now and we're down a little bit, but that is something that is really easy to fix. We built some buildings that have relatively high upkeep, but now that we've established most of our essentials, and usually I don't build the villa this early, I actually get my tech going first and then build the villa. But, I just wanted to kind of show you guys. But typically I would recommend getting your bread makers and your garum going. So you'd want to get your mackerel fishing going right here. You're going to get your salt extractor going. And then from there, you can get bread making, put it here. Because when I drop my first bread maker, the income in your city, if I just drop it right here, is going to massively skyrocket. You're going to be making 400 or 500 gold. Bread making is like the first threshold with which you make a lot of money. Anyways, guys, that is like a basics guide. I kind of threw up a bunch of information there. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys. We have our trade route active, so we can look here and you can go and see the trade route. He is active right now, and to evaluate it, you can go to your ship. He's down here. He's currently in the process of heading, it would appear, yeah, he's setting up a route here to go over that way. So he's gonna go do this, and all is smooth in the realm. So that's it. Just kind of threw a bunch of things out, and from there, you basically just advance. You say, okay, so they need bread and they need garum. You go to your building, you go to your plebeians. What do I need for bread? Well, the beginning of the chain is a wheat farm. You set up a wheat farm, go from there, get the chain going, make sure warehouses are present, make sure garum is there. Once it's in your warehouses, it gets delivered to the people. Once your population increases, it unlocks sandals, it unlocks soap making, and eventually it will unlock olive oil as well as the vases, which you can build. And once those needs are met, you're going to be able to advance this worker up to an equitas. Now, this is a beginner's guide video. We're going to do a full stream playthrough sometime in the next few days, where we play for like 6-7 hours, and you guys will get to see really the nitty gritty. But these are just the basics. I'm still a bit newbie at the game, but certainly the grid systems have improved, you know, setting up neighborhoods like this so the markets hit everything, putting your area of effect buildings in a way that they hit as much as possible. I can assure you there's more effective ways to do it, but it gives you guys the basics. All right, I appreciate you all. Really fun hanging out. We'll see you around. Take care of yourselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be it for today.